Hello and welcome back to my Super Monkey Ball review marathon. Now, some of you might remember that in the last Super Monkey Ball game I reviewed, I said that next time I'll be taking a look at Step and Roll for the Wii. Well, it turns out that I can't really do that because my Wii balance board had a battery leak issue and it's corroded one of the springs inside that makes it work. So yeah, I need a new balance board, and right now all of the shops are shut, and everywhere I look online they're really overpriced, so for now I'm gonna have to put that video on hold. It's not all bad though, because for now we can take a look at Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll for the DS, which was released between Super Monkey Ball Deluxe and Adventure. That kind of gives me hope, because it means that this was the last game released before what many people consider to be the downfall of the Super Monkey Ball series. In fact, this is the last game that uses the original Super Monkey Ball logo before they redesigned it for Adventure. So, let's take a look at it. Before we get stuck into the nitty-gritty, I want to be completely transparent here and say that the footage I'm using in this review wasn't recorded by me, and I actually took it from a YouTube channel called AdventurePlaythrough for the main game, and the credits minigame footage was taken from another channel called MisterFladdermus. Links to both channels are in the description, and I hope they're okay with me using the footage because I couldn't contact either of them to ask because they're seemingly completely inactive. The reason I couldn't record my own footage is because I don't have a DS or 3DS capture device, and I don't know of any safe sources to download emulators or ROM files now that Emu Paradise isn't hosting them anymore. So this is really the only way I can talk about it. Hopefully that's okay, and it's not too off-putting. The two major things that Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll does differently to other games in the series is that firstly, it's portable, giving it an advantage over the console versions in certain situations, like if someone else is using the TV or you're in need of a Monkey Ball fix while on the go. There was of course Super Monkey Ball Jr., which is also portable, but who wants to play a Game Boy Advance game now the DS is out? Get with the times already. The second difference between Touch and Roll and the other Super Monkey Ball games is in the name. You can now use the touch screen to move your monkey around, and I think this is actually a really great idea. Using the D-pad is also an option, but by doing this you're theoretically far less precise because you can't tilt the stage to different degrees, and rather it just snaps to a set angle, making you pick up speed very quickly, meaning that balancing on narrow platforms is difficult. By using the touchscreen you can move the stylus more towards the centre of the screen to move slowly, or move it to the edges to move quicker, effectively giving you more of an analog feel to the controls. While this is a great idea on the developer's end, I found the touchscreen controls to be very hit and miss. Sometimes making simple turns was really difficult due to oversensitivity, and I found that moving quickly was also extremely difficult. Even when my stylus was at the edge of the screen, I sometimes couldn't get the speed to make it over certain hills. So despite being an awesome idea, it's seemingly not very well executed. Maybe I just need to adapt a bit more to it, but it's not good that it doesn't feel instantly natural and responsive like the analog controls in the GameCube games do. If you're playing the game on a 3DS though, you actually have a third control option, which is to use the circle pad, which emulates the D-pad controls. This means that you can still only move in 8 directions rather than having full 360-degree control, and it also means that you can't tilt the stage to different degrees either. However, I found this to feel much better than the D-pad or touchscreen controls, and this is definitely my preference for controlling the game. Of course, later on it does become heavily flawed because it's difficult doing precise and accurate movement, but with some persistence you can get through even the tougher levels like this. It's a shame that the portable Monkey Ball games so far have all needed to make massive sacrifices to the controls because of the hardware they're on. The controls are one of the best things about the console releases, so to have this not up to scratch really does detract from the overall experience. Still, the developers of both Junior and Touch and Roll tried to use the hardware to give you as much precision as possible, and it's appreciated. Another thing Touch and Roll does differently to its predecessors is implement the world structure we saw later in Banana Blitz for the Wii. Whereas the older Monkey Ball games had you select a difficulty and then do a marathon of levels within that difficulty range, Touch and Roll has you select a world which is based around a certain visual theme and consists of 10 levels. Once you've completed those 10 levels, you then move on to the next world and repeat. Something I liked about the way progression works in Touch and Roll though, is how when you've cleared the first few worlds, another set of 3 or so worlds open up, allowing you to do them in any order you want. So theoretically, if there's a certain world you're struggling on, you can leave it and do the other worlds first, getting better at the game and then going back to the difficult world once you've improved. This is way better than Banana Blitz, which just unlocks each world one after another in a very linear order. I will say though that I don't think this world-based structure works very well for Super Monkey Ball. It breaks the game up too much and ruins the flow. The older games having a lot of levels that you do in quick succession within a difficulty bracket definitely suits the style of gameplay a lot more, and I don't know why they changed it to this world-based structure moving forward in the series. By the way, you're probably wondering why I've not mentioned what happens in the story, and there's a good reason for that. And that is that there's literally no story. There's no cutscenes, no reason given as to why you're visiting all of the different areas of the game, no bad guy you're trying to stop, nothing. There's not even a hint at plot information, even in the manual. This actually makes this the worst Monkey Ball game in this area, because even Super Monkey Ball 1 had a basic story outline in the Japanese version's manual. So yeah, that's a bit weird, but I guess it is somewhat forgivable given that this isn't a main series entry and it's more of a handheld spin-off. One of the standout things about the Super Monkey Ball games is definitely the level design. So, how does Touch and Roll compare to the other games in the series? Well, it turns out that Touch and Roll yet again uses the same levels from Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2 with a few new ones sprinkled in, but the original levels are very few and far between. This is getting a little bit ridiculous now. We've seen these levels in the first 2 games, then we've seen them in Junior, then we saw them again in Deluxe, and now we're seeing them yet again in Touch and Roll. They've remade and re-released the same levels 4 times at this point, and it's getting a bit silly. That isn't to say that the levels are bad, they're amazing, especially in the original games, but it was really getting to the point where we needed a fully original Monkey Ball game. Plus, just like with Super Monkey Ball Jr., it kind of devalues Touch and Roll having the same levels from the original games, because why would you play this over those? The controls, graphics, story, and literally every other aspect is better in the console versions, so the only somewhat valid reason to play this is for portability. But when you're making so many sacrifices, is it worth playing Touch and Roll just for the portable aspect? You know what's really beginning to annoy me as well? Just like with Banana Blitz, the credits play after you've finished each individual world. Only it's even worse in Touch and Roll because you can't skip them. Maybe if you turn the system off and back on again, it might skip them, but I never tried this because I didn't want to risk losing my progress. I mean, what is the deal with this? And why would they make this same mistake in 2 games for God's sake? At least the credits minigame is actually original in Touch and Roll though. In Banana Blitz, it was pretty much identical to the Super Monkey Ball 2 credits game. But here, it's fully original, and you have to use the touchscreen to bounce the monkeys up to the top screen and hit each letter of the developers' names. The more you hit, the more score you get, and you even get a bonus if you hit every letter of someone's name. It's pretty good, but it's not good enough to be forced to play it after beating every world. The last negative thing I'll say about the main game is that it just feels a little bit empty. There's no playpoint system to unlock bonus content, there's no extra characters or skins, and you don't even unlock the minigames this time around either. The only content you unlock is 2 bonus worlds by going through the optional goals hidden in a couple of levels, and by getting a total of 2006 bananas. Upon unlocking the first hidden world, you also get a banana counter, which is actually a really good idea, but because there's nothing to actually spend the bananas on, it's a bit pointless. With there being an emphasis on collecting bananas, there should have been a store to buy things with the bananas you collect, like in Super Monkey Ball Adventure. Touch and roll just feels a little bit bare bones, and it lacks replay value, because once you've done a world, you've kinda just done it. It doesn't even record your score or your times on each world, and it doesn't have leaderboards for the main game either. Despite structural flaws and the controls not being ideal though, this is better than Super Monkey Ball Jr., and a lot of the reason for that is due to the graphics being much improved, as well as the music being better too. In fact, the music in Touch and Roll is the same as the music in Banana Blitz, meaning that one of the only somewhat positive things I had to say about Banana Blitz, being the music, is somewhat invalid because it was just taken from Touch and Roll. So somehow, playing this game has made Banana Blitz even worse than what it already was. I still don't know how they messed that up so badly. Here's a comparison between a track from Touch and Roll and Banana Blitz, just to prove what I'm saying is true. The graphics in Touch and Roll are really nice for a DS game. The levels are fully modelled in 3D, and the backgrounds are really nice and varied, making each world feel distinct. An interesting choice with the graphics was to make the monkey sprites 2D, despite being a 3D game. While this could sound jarring, I actually think it looks quite good, and surprisingly, judging depth was still quite easy, despite your character being flat. I'm guessing that this was a decision to make the game run better or something. I don't know, maybe it was just an aesthetic decision, but I kinda feel like there's more to it than that. Either way though, I don't mind it, and like I said, it looks far better than Super Monkey Ball Jr., making this, at the time of its release, the best portable game in the series. Of course, the staple of having mini-games in Super Monkey Ball continues with Touch and Roll, so let's give them a quick look. Out of the 6 minigames available here, 4 of them are ones returning from older games. These are Monkey Race, Monkey Fight, Monkey Bowling, and Monkey Golf. All of the minigames in Touch and Roll are controlled exclusively with the touchscreen, making some of them feel drastically different to the ones featured in the older games. Just to touch on the minigame selection here for a second, I'm really surprised they didn't bring back Monkey Target. It's probably the most popular Super Monkey Ball minigame, and I think it could have translated well to the touchscreen controls. But yeah, it's not here for some reason. If you're wondering why I'm using footage taken from my 3DS screen here, it's because high quality footage of the minigames featured in this game doesn't seem to exist on YouTube, so sorry about that. Anyway, Monkey Race and Monkey Fight are pretty much just worse versions of the console versions due to the touchscreen controls. In Monkey Race, it just makes moving at speed more difficult than it needs to be, and with Monkey Fight you control movement by touching the bottom screen, but the game is also played on the bottom screen, so your stylus is just constantly in the way of your gameplay. Plus, it just doesn't control very well regardless of that. The version of Monkey Fight in Super Monkey Ball Jr. was actually better than this, which is a little bit disappointing. Monkey Bowling on the other hand is actually okay. You use the touchscreen to launch the ball forward and apply spin, and it works reasonably well. I still would probably rather play it with normal controls though. Monkey Golf, however, actually works really well with the touch controls, and I would say this is a worthy contender to the console versions. You select a club with the touchscreen, and then you choose the power of your swing by moving the monkey's club up to a certain angle and then slamming it down to hit the ball with your stylus. This is the only one of the returning minigames that I would say is somewhat improved by the control scheme here. The two new minigames are Monkey Hockey, which is basically just air hockey with power-ups, where your goal is on the bottom screen and you move the stylus to hit the puck to your opponent's goal on the top screen. And you can also aim for the power-ups in the corners of the table, which give you advantages like making your opponent's goal bigger. It's actually really good, and again, this works extremely well on the DS, using both of the screens and the touchscreen. The second new minigame is Monkey Wars, which was later featured again in the series in Banana Blitz, and was the single best minigame in that entire game. So to know that it isn't original to Banana Blitz and was first in Touch and Roll, again makes Banana Blitz even worse because its best minigame isn't even original. Seriously, can Banana Blitz get any worse? Anyway, Monkey Wars is actually a first-person shooter minigame where you walk around, collect power-ups and shoot at your enemies to kill them and get score. It controls really weirdly, using the D-pad, or circle pad, to move, then having a bar at the bottom which you swipe to rotate yourself, and simply tapping the screen to shoot. It sounds awkward, but you know what? It actually is really fun, and surprisingly the controls feel pretty natural. This is probably the best minigame in the whole game, but Monkey Hockey and Monkey Golf are really solid as well. Plus, all of these minigames are playable in multiplayer, and they support download play, meaning that you only need one copy of the game and 2 DS systems to play it with a friend. It's a good time overall, and even the minigames that aren't quite as good can still be fun in multiplayer, so the minigames in Touch and Roll are a definite success. It's a shame that there's no multiplayer element to the main game though. It would have been really cool to have played it with a friend to see who can do the stages fastest or with the highest score. Still, with this being a DS game, I guess I can overlook this. I'm putting Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll in 5th place in my series ranking. It's better than Junior in almost every way. Both of them have less precise controls than the console variants, and Junior does have a better version of Monkey Fight as well as a better structure for its main game. But the music, graphics and other minigames are much better in Touch and Roll, plus it has more levels too. It basically just feels like a more expanded Junior, so it makes sense that it's a position higher. It's probably not quite as good as Adventure though. Adventure just has a lot more content, better controls, it has an actual story, a much greater sense of progression, and more replayability in its challenge mode. I will say though that if the controls were more in line with the original games in terms of precision, Touch and Roll would be better than Adventure just based on the fact its levels are better and it's a more consistent game than Adventure. But the flimsy controls are a big detriment to the enjoyment you'll get from Touch and Roll. And that's Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll. It's kinda just an okay Monkey Ball game. Arguably, this is one of the least interesting games in the entire series because it's just so middle of the road. Like, it's not so bad that it could be considered entertaining like Banana Blitz, and it's not so good that I would recommend it to everybody like with the original games. So really, Touch and Roll can only be recommended to the most hardcore fans of Super Monkey Ball. To anybody else, I would say you're better off playing practically any other game in the series. Still, it's not like it's a bad game, so make of that what you will. Next up in the Super Monkey Ball Marathon, we're moving way ahead and we're taking a look at one of the more recent releases in the series, with Super Monkey Ball 3D for the Nintendo 3DS. Let's see if it's a better portable Monkey Ball experience than Touch and Roll. As per usual, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to see more stuff like this coming soon, and leave a comment down below letting me know what you think to Touch and Roll. And, until next time, bye!